First cut my hair off and I went to Milano to do the shows. I was booked for like 20 shows. About 15 of them canceled me because they didn't understand the haircut at first.
Imagine being so famous that your face didn't just appear on magazines, it became the standard for beauty worldwide. In the 90s, Vogue crowned her the most beautiful woman in the world. Linda Evangelista wasn't just wearing the clothes. She was rewriting what it meant to be a supermodel. Her look sparked copycats across the globe. Runways, billboards, music videos. Linda was everywhere, and then suddenly, she wasn't. What happened to the woman who defined an entire era of fashion? Why did she vanish at the peak of her fame? And how did one decision change her life and her face forever? Before the silence, before the surgeries, Linda was the heartbeat of a revolution. She stood shoulder to shoulder with Naomi Campbell, Cindy Crawford, Christy Turlington, Claudia Schiffer. But even among these legends, Linda shined the brightest. And unlike the fairy tale stories of models being discovered in shopping malls or airports, Linda worked for it. She didn't stumble into fashion, she hunted it down. As a little girl in Canada, she'd sneak into her aunt's makeup, collect sparkling costume jewelry, and cover her bedroom walls with pages ripped from Vogue. She wasn't dreaming about glamour, she was studying it, but the climb wasn't easy. Her first gigs, bridal catalogs, $8 an hour. Every cent went into building a portfolio. When she finally made it to Europe, casting directors turned her away in favor of taller, more conventional girls. But Linda refused to give up. She was no overnight success. She fought, she grinded, until finally, the world couldn't ignore her. The turning point, Vogue booked her, and from that moment, Linda was in. But it wasn't just the magazine spreads. It was the magic she created with one man, photographer Stephen Meisel. Their partnership didn't just produce pictures, it built an era. Their work was polished, dramatic, unforgettable. As fashion shifted from minimalism to glamour, Linda didn't just follow, she led. She became the chameleon of fashion, evolving with every trend and somehow always staying one step ahead. And then it happened. The moment that didn't just make Linda Evangelista famous, it made her immortal. One music video, one unforgettable look, and suddenly she wasn't just a model anymore. She was a cultural icon. She had the face, the discipline, the talent, and the world couldn't stop watching, until it all went quiet. For years, Linda Evangelista seemed to vanish. No interviews, no campaigns, no surprise runway comebacks like Naomi Campbell, no billion-dollar business moves like Cindy Crawford, no glamorous curtain calls like Claudia Schiffer. With Linda, there was nothing. No red carpets, no paparazzi candids, not even a whisper. And in an industry that thrives on visibility, her silence was deafening. Fans speculated endlessly. Had she retired? Was she sick? Had the queen of the runway simply walked away? But the truth was darker than anyone imagined. Linda wasn't taking a break. She was hiding, not from the world, but from herself. In 2015, she made a decision that would change her life forever. A cosmetic procedure called cool sculpting, marketed as safe, simple, and painless. Freeze a little fat, walk away slimmer. That was the promise. But for Linda, it turned into a nightmare. Instead of vanishing, the fat hardened, multiplied, and grew, an extremely rare side effect called paradoxical adipose hyperplasia. Her body began to change in ways she couldn't control. She said it left her disfigured, unrecognizable, and worst of all, the damage was irreversible. For more than 5 years, the most photographed woman in the world vanished from every camera lens. She refused jobs, turned down appearances, even skipped reunions that celebrated the very supermodel era she helped create. And it wasn't vanity, it wasn't ego, it was identity. Because the face that had once built her career no longer felt like her own. Her body was scarred, yes, but it was her spirit that shattered. She couldn't look in mirrors. She withdrew from friends. And perhaps most painfully, the people closest to her didn't recognize her anymore. She fell into a darkness no spotlight could reach. At her lowest, Linda admitted she couldn't even bear to step outside. And while she suffered in silence, the industry she once built turned its back. No designers reached out, no magazines called. The same fashion world that had crowned her its queen acted as if she'd never existed. In desperation, Linda filed a $50 million lawsuit against Cool Sculpting's parent company, citing disfigurement, trauma, and years of lost income. The company denied her claims, insisting the procedure was safe. But for Linda, it didn't matter. The damage was already done. What made her story so haunting was not the drama, but the quiet. There were no public meltdowns, no rehab scandals, no paparazzi breakdowns. Her fall wasn't noisy, it was invisible, psychological. Linda wasn't destroyed by fame, she was destroyed by the demand to stay perfect inside it. by a culture that worships youth, then erases women once they're no longer flawless. She tried to follow the rules. She paid the ultimate price. Then, after nearly 5 years in hiding, Linda reappeared. In 2022, she stepped in front of the camera again, not for Versace or Chanel, but for herself, the cover of British Vogue. But this wasn't the glossy Linda the world remembered. The shoot was carefully lit, her jawline taped back, her neck half hidden, every pose meticulously chosen. She wasn't pretending nothing had happened. She was controlling how the world would see it. And it was powerful, not because the images were flawless, but because they carried the weight of survival. In that Vogue interview, Linda confessed, "I miss my job so much, but I can't just go out and take jobs like I used to, not with what I look like now." For decades, she was the most photographed woman in the world. And now, she was saying what millions of women silently feel: the price of beauty can be irreversible. The cover wasn't just a comeback, it was a reckoning with fashion, with time, with impossible standards. Soon after, she appeared in Fendi's campaign, standing beside Kate Moss. No filters, no grand statements, just presence. It wasn't the old Linda trying to prove she was flawless. It was a new Linda, showing the world that flaws don't erase worth. She began speaking openly about mental health, about aging, about how painful it is to look in the mirror when your face was once your currency. She wasn't redefining beauty with another reinvention. She was redefining it with truth. But just as she stepped back into the light, life dealt her another devastating blow: a second breast cancer diagnosis. Linda admitted she didn't tell her friends. She didn't even want to admit it to herself. After a double mastectomy, she thought she was in the clear, but the cancer came back. And once again, she disappeared, not out of shameless time, but out of fear for her life. Through it all, one friend never left her side: Christy Turlington. In a world where fashion friendships fade as quickly as trends, Christy's loyalty never wavered. "She checked on me regularly. She never gave up on me," Linda said. That quiet friendship kept her tethered when everything else fell apart. By 2023, Linda wasn't chasing runways or magazines. She was reclaiming her story. With photographer Stephen Meisel, she released a book, a visual archive of her career, and a personal act of authorship. Her words were clear: "I want to be seen how I choose to be seen, not how they used to see me." And that was the difference. The industry that once used her image to define beauty was now forced to reckon with her truth. Because Linda Evangelista wasn't just a model anymore, she was a mirror for every woman who felt discarded once they aged. A mirror for anyone who ever tried to disappear because they didn't feel enough. A mirror for everyone who'd survived something the world couldn't see. Her legacy isn't the flawless covers. It isn't the runways or the campaigns. It's the moment she broke the illusion, when she stepped out of the frame, only to return on her own terms. Not for approval, not for beauty, but for truth. And that, in the end, is the most powerful image Linda Evangelista ever gave us.